Welcome back to Next Shift with Rick Wagan. Suzuki doesn't suck. As you can see, I have my guest with me. This is a pregame show of the Montreal Canadiens versus the Islanders. Stephen Cohen is back, and we'd like to talk a little bit about the last couple of games as well as the upcoming game. As you all know, the Canadiens have lost two in a row since beating Ottawa. They lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-3 with an empty net goal, and then they ended up losing 4-1. Last game with another to the Los Angeles Kings with another empty net goal. As you can all remember, I was fairly disappointed in my post-game show, as I think a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans were. I know Steven and I have had some side conversations talking about different players and would love to get his perspective of the last two games, as well as the upcoming game tonight in New York on the island against the Islanders. So that being said, Steven, what do you think? How do you feel the Canadiens have been playing the last couple of games? What do you like? What do you not like? What's going on?
Yeah. So number one, I got to say that I'm disappointed in the offense. So they've scored 4 goals in 2 games, and that's not going to get a lot of W's in the NHL. So something's got to change. I don't know if it's line changes or mixing something up, but listen, the first line is definitely, you see the effort, you see the shots on goal, you see the chances, but the puck's not going in the net. The second, third, and fourth line, we're getting nothing. So my disappointment in the last 2 games, I'm not going to go and blame the goaltending, because I think while the goaltending wasn't there when they played Pittsburgh, I think the goaltending was there, and the game was there for their taking. Last game, Monty kept the team in the game deep into the third period. You can't win many NHL games scoring 1 goal. So, in a nutshell, for me, I have some ideas of what the Canadiens can do to kind of spice things up on the offensive side, because I think the team's getting lethargic from an offensive point of view.
All right, I like your take. As you said, the last couple of games the Canadiens only scored 4 goals. I appreciate that. One thing that to note, and you mentioned it, is the first line has been producing, right? You have Caulfield with 4 goals and an assist, 5 points in 5 games, Slafkovsky with a goal and 3 assists in 5 games, and now Suzuki has 4 assists in 5 games. It's not like they're not producing, but I don't disagree, especially with the second and third lines comments, right? Though, I mean, everyone's kind of aware that Doc has not been playing up to speed, and I think the team is realizing that it's taking him a little bit of time to get his legs under him at the NHL level with the injury that he had. That's a serious injury. Some people it takes 6 months, some people it takes 2 years to get back, and so that's going to be a key aspect or decision that has to be made. When it comes to goaltending, I actually feel it was the reverse than what you said, which is, game against Pittsburgh, I thought the goaltending was very good, relatively good, except, maybe 1 goal. I think I mentioned Lars Eller's second goal was something he probably could have saved. Again, it was a key goal because at that point it was 3-2 Montreal, and he gave up a goal that could have been saved. And I think you said it actually on our last call, our last show, I should say, not call, but our last show, where you basically said, it's so important for goalies to make that big save. Yeah. And I think that's where I'm going, or I was going on my post-game show last game with Montembeault. When it was 2-1, the Canadiens were pressing. They had the pedal to the metal. They were trying to come back in the game, and that third goal was not up to par. I know Monty saved a breakaway, a penalty shot, a ton of saves. I'm not saying he's a bad goalie. I'm saying, and I know that when a team is down 2-1 in the third period, now I know 1 goal is not enough, but the second goal that came in wasn't the greatest goal either. And a lot of times those are backbreakers for players. You're pushing, and then the goalie score. They score against you on a shot from the point that wasn't screened. I mean, those should be saved by an NHL goalie. Now that being said, he made some stops that were outstanding. So you can't fault Monty. All I can say is, he's not the player he was the first game. The first game or two, he was outstanding, on his head, top elite goalie maybe in the league. Now he's showing another side, which is more of an average goalie. And when I say average, you have to remember there's a lot of good goalies in the NHL, right? You have Binnington and Swayman and Vasilevsky and you can go on and on, Hellenbuck and Demko. And after a while, calling him an average goalie means he's in the top 15 or so, which is still a great level. I think the issue is, can he become a top 10, top 5 goalie? And it similar to Primo, it has to be consistency to get there. I think because he's inconsistent, he'll be a top goalie 1 or 2 games. He'll be an average or below average goalie some games as well, and that's the key to becoming a superstar goalie, right?
So let me ask you a question. In your opinion, how many games do you think you can win at the NHL level scoring 1 goal?
But again, I'll swap it to you. No, not a lot. I hear you, but I'll swap it the other way. I'm not blaming the game on. But remember, when you're playing in a hockey game and you're pushing back and forth, and their goalie is stopping the puck, and your goalie lets in a goal from the point, right. It's hard to kind of put the pedal to the metal and try to score a goal. And the Canadiens were coming off a 6-goal against performance, so they were trying to play a more defensive style game. They were stuck in their own end for the second period again the whole time. They have some work to do on their defensive positioning and getting out of their end. They're still a young team. There's new systems. There's stuff like that. So, you're right. Listen, the Canadiens have to score goals. The second line and third line have to produce. In my opinion, Josh Anderson, Armia, I could name guys that just disappeared last game. Doc, Newhook, they disappeared last game, and you need those guys to play hockey, right? So
we need to score goals, and I think at one point we'll see what happens tonight. We need to generate some offense, but if they can't generate offense from the second, third, and fourth lines, they're going to need to kind of split up Suzuki and Caulfield, or do something to kind of to generate some more offense across more than one line. And listen, it's only coming up game 6. And I think there's, who knows, tonight we might see a flurry of goals, and they've gotten some good scoring chances, and the puck's not going in the net. So I'm being patient. I'm not throwing up the flag right now saying please help us. I'm very cautiously optimistic that we're going to get some offense tonight. Listen, let's look at the positives, okay? The Canadiens now are starting to use Lane Hudson a little bit more. I saw him on PP1, and maybe it was because Matheson got hurt and got the opportunity to get some more chances. But the kid is just unbelievable. And I think the more he plays, there's going to be a game where he just breaks out and has 7 points. I'm not kidding you. The chances he's generating just with his passes are Gretzky-like, in my opinion. So.
Mm-hmm. No, listen, I can't say anything negative about Lane Hudson. He played over 30 minutes in a non-overtime game last game. Obviously, Matheson was hurt. Turns out, let me give you some information that I think I'm looking forward to your facial reaction. So it turns out Matheson is probably healthy enough to play. It's still not 100%, but it turns out that Gouli actually got hurt. So Gouli's out of the game tonight with an upper body injury for a few games. Or a few days, day to day at this point. We don't know exactly what it was. I think it was when he got hit by Kempe. He kind of had slowly got up. I remember him kind of grabbing his arm or his hand. So we'll see how bad it is. Hopefully it's not too dangerous, too bad. Gouli has been injury prone in the past, so we'll see. With Matheson back, will Lane Hudson get power play one time again? We'll see, right? So that's another question. And then the third thing that came up was Slavkovsky actually injured himself in practice last game. He flew to New York, but he's a game time decision. So where everyone's going to play, who's going to play. Martin St. Louis didn't say anything to the media before the game because it's a game time decision, except for this one. Caden Primo will be starting tonight. He's back in the net. I'd love to take your take on that. Martin St. Louis' point of that was it's his turn. I actually agree with this move, considering the last couple of games weren't lights out by Montembeault. Give the kid another chance. Islanders are not a top tier team. They're definitely a playoff in the mix team, but they're not. We're not. We're not. It's not. They're not playing against a team like a Rangers or Toronto or something like that, where
Right.
you don't want your backup in there. It is an interesting decision because I don't think the Canadiens play for a few more days after this. So it really wasn't about a back-to-back or Montembeault being tired.
Right.
It's really giving him his chance. So love your take on that one. Are you concerned or okay with him giving him a shot?
Listen, it's a crapshoot with Primo. So, 1 out of every 3 games, the kid is brilliant. I mentioned in one of the previous shows, the kid was an excellent goaltender in the American Hockey League playoffs a couple of years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. He was a superstar. But for some reason, right, just, for a couple of games out of, let's say, the next out of 3 games, he just doesn't have it. Loses his confidence. He lets in very weak goals. And I'll tell you something. He's in nets. If he lets in a weak goal to start the game, right,
Yeah, they might
we're
pull
in
him.
for a long night.
Although they might pull
I
him, right?
really want to see him at least have a good, strong first period where he doesn't let any goals in, and even if they give up some chances, he's got to just keep the puck out of the net. And let's see what happens. I mean, listen, it's Game 6. I'm not the coach of the Canadiens. I wouldn't have done it. I would have kept Monty in the net. He gives us the best chance to win. I think it's a bold move, and we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with everything you're saying. I mean, Primo cannot live on the fact that he's a young goalie anymore. He's 25 years old. But typically, if you look at Devin Levy, look at these kids that come out of college. The first couple of years, there's an inconsistency to them. It's hard. And then you think about the other thing, Montreal, the game he played the night before. Montembeault saved 48 shots and got a shutout, and he had to come in and kind of play the second game the next night with his team kind of tired against a tough Boston team who just got beat by Florida. I like Primo. I think he's better than 1 out of 3 games. 1 out of 3 games he's great. 1 out of 3 games he's average, and 1 out of 3 games he might not have the greatest night. I thought, at the end of the day, he's not a Montembeault, and he's not a first string goalie. We know that he's not going to be a first string goalie in the NHL. I think that's what he's proven. But can he come out and win a game like tonight? It's going to be a good test. I think this is actually a big test for him. Like I mentioned when it first happened, it can't be a continuous. He can get. You can have a bad game. You can have 2 or 3 bad games, and if you do that, that's when you start looking in the minors at a Dobish or something else. But at this point, give him a shot. I'm not opposed to this. I haven't really been overly impressed with Monty the last 2 games, and so from that perspective, it's not like he's being pulled in the middle of a hot streak right now. So let's give him a chance and see what happens. So
he made some really good. Monty made some really, while he let in some weak goals, he made some really good.
No, I said that. I said that. I said honestly, when I said at the post game was he gave up 3 goals and maybe he could have saved 2 or 3 of those, but he also saved about 3 goals that maybe would have went in on an average goalie. So I appreciate that. I'm not saying it was his fault, but what I'm saying is timing, right? It's all about timing. And so from my perspective, listen, if Slavkovsky plays, I still think they're going to keep the first line together. That's the only line producing. I don't know if they're going to change anything right now, the last couple of games. But if they don't produce, the other lines aren't producing and they're not producing on the first line, it doesn't, what's his name? Martin St. Louis is not locked and loaded. He'll switch the lines up, and he has done that in the past. So I could see that happening as well. We need Doc to play well. We need Armia to play well. Newhook's inconsistent. We'll see how it goes, right?
Let's talk about Doc for a second. So you mentioned that Doc is, a little slow coming from his injury, and this is what I see, right? They threw him into the power play. He's making mistakes, like just moving the puck around in the power play, turnovers. Something's not right now with Doc. I don't know what it is. Like you said, it could be timing, it could be confidence, it could be conditioning, right? It could be experience. But if it were me, I would replace him on the power play because right now he's not producing. And he's also the thing that really bothers me the most is we're
So
moving the puck around and then suddenly he just makes a bad pass and then the puck's cleared. And
so I
he's done
agree.
that a couple of times.
I agree with you. It's again, I think I know what it is. It's an injury that he had, and he missed a whole year, and he's still a
Right.
young hockey player, and I don't think he's got his full quickness back on his legs. So from a quickness perspective, he's a step behind, and then he's also missed a year. And this is, you can practice all you want in the off season. It's not the same as playing in the NHL and in the regular season at this level. I don't disagree with that call. Who would you put in the power play to
Oh,
replace him?
I have the answer.
I,
So
I have an answer too.
for me, it's an obvious choice. I would put Kapanen and
Hmm.
replace Kapanen, Doc with Kapanen.
Hmm.
In the preseason, he was very confident with the puck, moving it around on the power play. I'm very interested to see Kapanen with Suzuki, with Caulfield, with Lane Hudson. I think that could be a magical recipe to kind of generate some scoring chances on the power play. And think about it, Rick. Um, while there haven't been that many power plays, right? When they pull the goalie 6-on-4 or 6-on-5, that's essentially a power play. And we're not seeing any goals, right? We're seeing some chances, but we're not seeing any goals. And I'd like to see Kapanen on the ice. I'd like to get the Canadians to give him a shot, and let's see
Okay.
what happens.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I haven't been overly impressed with Kapanen in the last couple of games. I think he's in a tough spot. He's playing with Dvorak. He's not playing with the top line. So I appreciate what you're saying. I wouldn't be opposed to that call. My call is still the same, which I said before. Matheson and Hudson on the power play.
Oh
Put
yeah,
Hudson on the right wall, and have that kind of work. And then your second power play, you can have a Baron with a Doc and a Kapanen, right? So you can still have a pretty good second power play. But again, and then the other thing I saw or heard, which is not on the power play, is have Heineman bump up to the second line with Doc and bring a little bit of energy with his shot, and maybe replace a new hook or something like that. So we'll see how it all plays out. I don't know what they're going to do, right? I mean, they haven't had a lot of time to prepare for tonight's game, so I don't know if they're going to have like completely different power plays and completely different line mates and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting. I think they haven't announced what they're going to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of changes from last Thursday's game, just based on the fact that there was injuries. There's
yeah,
some people that may not play. There's people that aren't playing well, and I think it's an inflection point where they can actually make a change, right? Because
So,
it's got,
so if Slav doesn't play,
yeah.
and they make some changes, and then you start seeing some goals, start popping into the net, then it would be interesting to see what happens the following game when Slav is healthy, and does he go back to there's a lot of what if scenarios, and I'm very interested to see. Listen, it's early. I'm not panicking. We're 2-3. We could easily be 3-2. I
So I'm panicking. So I'm panicking because
don't.
I'll tell you why I'm panicking. Last game was the closest thing to 2 years ago that I've seen in a long time. They were worse last game than they were last year. I didn't see a game that bad almost last year, all of last year. I watched almost every game last year, if not every minute of every game. And Montreal Canadiens looked like a last place team, not a fifth to last place team. That's what they looked like last game. And not the whole game. I thought the first period they were on and off, but the first line played very well in the first period, at least the first half, as well as Armia. There was a few players that played some good hockey in the first period, and then something happened. They all just kind of lost it, and it was really a weak second and third period for everybody. The Canadiens had one good game this year in the second period. It was actually against Pittsburgh, I believe, where they actually outplayed the team in the second period. Other than that, they have to figure out their second periods, because if they're losing draws, they're getting stuck in their own end. And once you get stuck in your own end, you can't get the puck out. And people are, calling for this. Looks like a power play against the Canadiens. Well, it is. I mean, if you're on your own end and they're pressing you and then they change their lines twice while you're in your own end, and your same guys are sucking wind for 2 minutes. You can't expect a guy that's been on the ice for a minute and a half against a guy that's been on for 15 seconds. That's probably a top line player because they're hemmed in to to get the puck. They're just trying to keep it outside, right? So that's the challenge they're having, and that's been a challenge they've had for 2 seasons now, and they have to fix that problem. I don't know the answer, other than the fact that they have to be more aggressive on defense. They have to take some chances to get the puck out. Otherwise, they end up just kind of collapsing in the middle, and it becomes just a challenge for 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes before either there's a goal, there's a penalty, or there's an icing, and it happens again, right? That's usually what ends up happening. So it's challenging.
So one other player that we really didn't talk about that I don't think is, well, you mentioned him also, in one circumstance, but one player who's really not playing up to speed is Newhook. So listen, when they acquired Newhook, I was kind of surprised. He's a perennial fourth line player. He has a lot of promise. He has a good shot. He skates very nicely. He's quick, but for some reason, right? He's not generating chances. He's not in the mix. His nose is not around the puck. I was imagining a player like Gallagher that's younger, that would just be involved and just create chances. And I still think that it's possible, but he's got to play better. He's really for a player that's playing on the second line and getting chances on the power play, he's really been very disappointing in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Newhook was drafted in the 2019 draft, the 16th overall, right after Caulfield. He was on the Canada junior team. He was an offensive star on that team. He played with Doc. He played with these players in that tournament. The Canadiens are stockpiling players from that year. They had Doc, they have Caulfield, they have Newhook. They were trying to get Zegras. That year is kind of a year that they feel like was a strong draft. I still, how do I put this? I think Newhook is a third line player, but at the end of the day, he's playing the wrong position. He's playing in second and first line. I think he's a middle six forward who should be more on the bottom part of that middle six. And he if you remember the first couple of games, we were kind of impressed. He was actually playing pretty well the first 2 or 3 games. He got a goal. He was, using his speed. I think everybody just kind of had a lack of effort last game. And I think when a kid is playing with that kind of speed and he has a lack of effort, it's kind of obvious that it's not going to work out. So long story short, I agree with what you're saying there. I don't think he belongs in the top 6. That's the problem. I think it is, right? I think that's what I said from day one, even before the season started. So from my perspective, he should be a third line left winger on a line with a Dvorak or on a line with whoever's the third line center at the time. And that's where I think he can add value to the team. And putting him on a line where you expect him to score and be an offensive threat is not his thing. I don't think he's going to be the big goal scorer that they hope. I mean, he's supposed to bring energy. He's supposed to bring speed. And the problem is he's just not doing that. He're right. He's not a Gallagher type. He doesn't win the battles in the corners. He just gets there.
He would be with his speed, he'd get involved in the corners, just like RHP, hopefully we get him back soon, right? That kid, right? He's small, but he's a spark plug. For some reason, his nose is always around the puck, right? And he generates chances. And then next thing you know, you look at the score sheet, and Raphael Harvey Pernard has 3 points. He has 2 points. It doesn't matter what line you put him on.
Well, it didn't happen last year, right? Last year he didn't have a good year. 2 years ago, you're right. He played. When he played a lot. Take a look at his stats. I'll open it up if you want. But he didn't do that last year. That was the problem. He had injuries, and I appreciate that. And by the way, we don't know. Slavkovsky might have got hurt after the first period last game and didn't play well in the second and third. People have injuries in the background. We don't know what's going on. What I will say is Alex Barré-Boulet had 4 points last night against Laval in Laval with
I liked him.
with Joshua Roy.
slow
Yeah,
them down.
with Joshua Watt scoring a couple of goals too, so they looked really good in Laval. So you never know what's going to happen in the next couple of months, next week, next month or two, as with injuries and these players that can maybe help the Montreal Canadiens in the short term. All right, I think we've talked enough about the last couple of games. I think we agreed more than I thought we would. I mean, other than I think I think we're on the same page. I was surprised you weren't as excited or disappointed that they're playing Primo tonight, but end of the day, I'm not upset about that. Although if he plays terrible, I will be. But then again, you need to give him a shot so you know what you have. I mean, if he doesn't do well,
Right.
you can cut your losses sooner rather than later. If you just sit him on the bench and
Right.
eventually play him, you won't know.
I agree with that move. Like, do it
Yeah,
now rather than store him on the bench and then he plays and he's not very good. And then, so, if you have Dobes and you have another goalie that you can bring up, let's find out about that sooner than later. So for that reason, I'm not, terribly opposed to, let's see what we get tonight. So
yeah.
let's talk for a couple of minutes about the game coming up. So what do you think?
Okay.
What do you
I
expect?
mean, the Islanders are, they have Patrick Roy as their coach, which is always interesting. They did announce, or they did talk pregame about having a game plan to stop Hudson, which is amazing. He's played seven NHL games, and they're already game planning against Hudson. They're talking about playing him like they played Makar the other day. So we don't know what that means. Martin St. Louis was asked about that, and he said, well, what does that mean? They're going to give him more space so they'll get caught, or they're going to try to be more physical with him? Like, he goes, I'm not worried about Hudson. Hudson is such a great, smart player. He'll figure out a way to get around whatever they do to make it change. So
Right.
I think the Montreal Canadiens, I hope that they come with a different level of effort tonight, right? I think that was the thing that disappointed me, was the fact that I didn't feel like they were taking that extra stride. The guys like Josh Anderson, even the guys like Slavkovsky and Armia and all these guys, in the second and third period, they just didn't follow through and finish the check and really get on it. And what I want to see is, if they get scored on again, I want to see anger. I want to see pissed off. I want to see a team that cares. I find like this team doesn't have that level of energy and effort. And if we get that, I think they're going to be a strong team. I think that's the thing that disappointed me the most about last game. And it's not about making mistakes, because they're going to make mistakes. Do I think the Canadiens are going to win? I want to say yes. I don't. I actually don't. I think the Canadiens are not going to win tonight. But I want to say yes. I want to say yes. I just think the Canadiens really disappointed me last game, and they're not playing their first goalie, and they have some injuries that are important. Gouli and maybe Slavkovsky. I mean, I'm not betting on the Canadiens. I don't bet a lot. I don't bet a lot, because when I bet, I usually get it wrong anyway. But I'm not betting on the Canadiens, so maybe that'll help.
Here's my take. Okay, this is my prediction. If Caden Primo doesn't let in a goal in the first period, I think the Canadiens win the game. That's it. That's my prediction right there. He's got to have a strong.
But if he lets in a goal, would they win the game?
If he lets in a goal or two goals in the first period, it's going to be a tough uphill battle.
Well, they're going to lose, right? Is what you're saying. If they let in two goals, they're going to let. If he lets in two goals,
no,
the
I
first.
didn't say that. I said that if he can just keep them bottled up and in the game in the first period, I think he's going to get the confidence to play a very good game. That's been historically his problem, is that he just starts off very weakly and then it turns into a really bad game. So I'm very interested in seeing the first, 20 minutes of this hockey game, and crossing my fingers that Caden is going to come with, also a sense of urgency. I hope he understands that, like, he doesn't play well, he's probably going to get sent down to the minors. So,
but yeah, you understand, right? Like, that doesn't always help every player, right? To have that level of pressure. I mean, it's listen. You told it. He played in the playoffs of AHL. He looked great. He played in Northeastern in some major games. He looked great. I like him. I don't. Listen. The problem he has right now. How old is Montembeault? A couple of years older, right? I think he's 1 or 2 years older than Primo. Montembeault 2 years ago, that was his weakness. In the first period, he'd give up a goal early, and then he's like
27 years old.
Yeah, I believe so. Let me check exactly while we're talking. But he's for sure 26, but I want to make sure while we're talking. Yeah. So my take is, I don't disagree. If he plays a good period, that puts, again, it's back to what I said before. If you're not giving up bad goals or goals when your team needs you the most, he's actually 27, turning 28 in October, end of October. So he's almost 28. Yeah. So yeah, net is, I agree with that statement in a sense that if he doesn't let in a goal, but without Gouli and without Slafkovsky possibly, and whatever they do, and putting Primo in the nets, the odds of them not giving up a goal in the first period are low. I wouldn't bet on that one either. So whether they give up 1 or 2 goals, that's going to make a difference. I mean, let's be honest, right? But doesn't mean the Kings can't put the puck in the net against this team. They have a solid goalie too, but. End of the day, Saturday night. It's not in Montreal. It's in the island, but it's a Saturday night. We'll hope that they squeak out or blow out the victory. Right? They haven't done that well.
So before we end the show, right? What's your score? What's your prediction for the game?
4-2 Islanders. Okay. 4-2 Islanders. It may be an empty netter. It's not going to be high scoring because I think Roy plays a tighter game. And the Canadiens have given up too many goals lately, so I think they're going to try to keep it tight. So I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I think it's going to end up, being one of those games where it's 3-2, 3-1, and then they're going to give up a goal in the empty net or something like that.
My prediction is 4-3 Habs. They win it in overtime, not in a shootout, but in overtime. Here's the real big, going out on a limb. Lane Hudson scores the winner in overtime. I'm really excited. I'm excited to see Lane Hudson in a 3-on-3.
I think we all are. I've watched him play in college, and he was outstanding at that level, and I don't expect it to change at this level. The only thing I haven't seen him do is really get that kid has I know people don't know it, but if you watch the NCAA, he has one of the most accurate shots too. He had a lot of goals like that. He hasn't really taken the shots that he did in the NCAA. Maybe it's harder. I'm not saying it's not, but at the end of the day, he does know how to put the puck in the net. So if he does get the chances, he'll put the puck in the net. He has an accurate shot. It's not the heaviest shot, but it's accurate. Caulfield's shot isn't the heaviest either, but it's accurate. So end of the day, I agree. I think if it goes into overtime, I wouldn't bet against Hudson getting the goal for sure. So I don't disagree with that one. I just don't know if it's going to happen. And again, when I say for sure, I mean he'll get a power. I guarantee you this year he'll have an overtime goal or 2 along the way for sure. So that I guarantee. All right, Steven. Appreciate the chat and the show. Great show tonight. Looking forward to the game coming up in a little bit over an hour. So that's it for me. Anything else before we go?
No, go Habs. Let's go. Let's get another W. Let's get to 3-3.
All right, that's it for next shift pregame show. Looking forward to the game. Talk to you guys soon. Bye now.